بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين أما بعد رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. My dear brothers and sisters in Islam, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to our after dhuhr reminder this Ramadan 2014. My dear brothers and sisters, one day Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam walked past a grave, and he acknowledged the inhabitant of this grave being punished, being severely punished. And he said the reason why this person was being punished was because he used to eat the flesh of his brothers. He used to eat the flesh of people. This is what he used to do. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam once spoke to the Sahaba and he said, "Atadruna mal ghiba?" Do you know what backbiting is? So they said, Allah and His Messenger know best. So he said, "Dhikruka akhaka bima yakrahu." Ghiba, or backbiting, is saying something about your brother behind his back, and your brother would not like for you to say that about him. This is the definition of ghiba. Many a time we see people saying, when you advise them not to backbite, they say, you know what, I can say it to his face. And this means nothing, my dear brothers and sisters. Having the ability to say something to somebody's face does not make haram halal. And there's a difference. If you say it to his face, this is nasiha. This is giving him sincere advice. This is advising somebody. What benefit is there in saying something about your fellow Muslim brother or sister behind his or her back? Something that they would dislike for you to mention about them in their absence. When Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam went for Mi'raj, and this is, wallahi, a hadith which you and I should think about constantly when we use our tongues. Something that should really cause us to shiver before we ever speak. When he went for Mi'raj, he says sallallahu alayhi wasallam that he saw a people, and these people had copper nails, and they were ripping the skin off their faces. They were ripping the skin off their faces. They were tearing the skin off their faces. And Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam inquired that who are these people and why are they doing this to themselves? And he was informed sallallahu alaihi wasallam that these were people who used to eat the flesh of others. They used to backbite them. My dear brothers and sisters, there's no goodness that can come from backbiting. Absolutely no goodness. You might feel a form of elation because you said something about somebody for whatever reason. And in many cases, a person backbites because they're jealous of the person they're speaking about. Right? You might find this temporary elation, but by Allah, even this is there's no goodness in it for you. There's no goodness that can come from backbiting. When you backbite somebody, you are actually giving your hard-earned deeds to them. And when your deeds cease to exist anymore, you're actually taking their sins, their burdens, and you're placing it upon yourself. Because this is what will happen on the day of Qiyamah for a person who backbites. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will take your good deeds and give it to them. And when your good deeds are finished, Allah will repay those who you harmed by taking their bad deeds and giving it to you. There's no good deeds, wallahi, that can come from a person who backbites. And that is why, you can't help but be amazed at the one who backbites. That he gives away his hard-earned deeds. Who gives away his or her hard-earned money? You all here, you've come from work this morning, you're fasting, right? You know how difficult it is. You've spent a few hours at work, what you had to do, the deadlines you had to meet. And then you get a salary at the end of the month and you give it to somebody just like that. Imagine your deeds, hard-earned deeds. Being sincere in our worship is hard, and when we worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and He rewards us, this is something we should hold steadfast, we should hold tight onto. And here, in a gathering, in an evening gathering, in a lunch break, in a tea break, we're busy dishing out wholesale our hard-earned deeds to people. It's amazing. One cannot help but be amazed at the person who does this. And that is why when Fudail ibn Iyad was told of a person came to him and complained and said, so and so is backbiting me. He said, congratulations to you. A great goodness has been prepared for you. You shouldn't be sad about this, because he has just given you his good deeds. Abdurrahman al-Mahdi, he said, if I never hated that people live in the disobedience of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on this earth, if I never hated it, I would have loved for people to backbite me. Subhanallah. Hassan, what would he do? If someone came to him and said, so and so has said something about you, he would send them a gift and say, I heard you did some good for me. وَهَلْ جَزَاءُ الْإِحْسَانِ إِلَّا الْإِحْسَانِ. Can the repayment of good be anything but good? You've given me your deeds. This is the least I can do by offering you this gift. Abdullah ibn Mubarak, all these great people that walk the face of this earth, he said, if I was to backbite somebody, then my parents would be most deserving of me backbiting them, because I have been commanded to be the best to them, meaning my deeds are the most precious things to me. Why would I give it to if I was to give it to anybody else, I would give it to my parents. Right? Look at the thinking of these great people who walk the face of this earth, and their understanding of how valuable their deeds were and how bad and evil backbiting was. My dear brothers and sisters, we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to forgive us. But understand that when you backbite somebody, it's no more just between you and Allah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will forgive you only when the person you harmed has forgiven you. But we have a predicament when we backbite people. And that predicament is that when we go to them and tell them of what we did, not everyone will be so forthcoming with us. It's most likely that we will create a bigger problem as a result of informing them. And that's why the scholars say, rahmatullahi alayhim, that if you fear a person, or if you fear a problem becoming bigger as a result of you telling someone you've backbited them, don't tell them that you've backbited them. But there's another solution. And that solution is for you to make sincere dua for them, for you to ask Allah to forgive them, for you to ask Allah to increase them in the goodness that they have and that Allah has given them. This is what you need to do as a result. This is what you need to do as a result. You need to do good to them so that it cancels out the bad that you have done. Right? So this is what we do. And the reason why they say this is they say backbiting is not allowed in the first place because it exacerbates animosity amongst the believers. So by you informing somebody of something, if that is going to exacerbate animosity, then this is not from the wisdoms of Allah preventing backbiting. So rather you don't tell them, but you dedicate yourself in making sincere dua for Allah to forgive them and increase their goodness. And this is a win-win situation. Because when you make dua for your Muslim brother, Allah appoints an angel to make the same dua for you. Allahu Akbar. Look how beautiful Islam is. Wallahi. In you redeeming yourself and fixing your wrong, Allah is rewarding you even greater by appointing an angel and saying the same dua of goodness he's making for the person he harmed, Allah appoints an angel free from sin to make that dua for you. Subhanallah. My dear brothers and sisters, when backbiting happens, you can be one of three people and no fourth. Remember this. When backbiting happens, you can be one of three and no fourth. You can either be the one who's doing the backbiting, and this is the worst situation, and you've seen why. Or you can be the one who's being spoken about. And glad tidings to you, and we've explained why. Or you can be the one who listens to the backbiting. And you have one of two options. Either you continue listening and you carry the sin, or you step up and defend the honor of your Muslim brother or sister and prevent this person from continuing in their wrong, in their error. And for this person, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam gives him glad tidings of a barrier being created for him, between him and being punished in the hellfire. Why? Because he stood up in protection of the honor of his fellow Muslim brother or sister. My dear brothers and sisters, this is the month of Ramadan. This is the month of taqwa, and from the means of attaining taqwa is by protecting your tongue. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu ittaqullaha, O you who believe, be God conscious, wa qulu qawlan sadida. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is teaching us that from the ways of acquiring God consciousness is by looking after your tongues. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best. Everything correct said is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and He's perfect, and any mistakes are from myself and shaitan, and I seek Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's forgiveness. Wa sallallahu wa sallam wa baraka ala nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in.